At the company party, amidst the clinking of glasses and animated chatter, I overheard snippets of conversation that would unravel the fabric of my marriage. Elizabeth's boss, Mr. Thompson, a jovial man with a penchant for storytelling, held court near the bar. His booming voice carried across the room, recounting the recent success of a major project led by none other than my wife. Curiosity piqued. I drifted closer, feigning interest in a nearby display of company achievements. Mr. Thompson, with a proud smile, regaled a small group with Elizabeth's pivotal role in securing a lucrative contract. My pulse quickened as he mentioned her promotion to a senior position and the substantial bonuses she had earned. I struggled to reconcile this new information with the Elizabeth I knew, the wife who had always been supportive and shared her triumphs and challenges with me. Yet here she was, accepting accolades and compliments with grace, as though this success had been a solo endeavor. A cold knot formed in the pit of my stomach. I watched her from across the room, observing the way she effortlessly charmed her colleagues, her eyes sparkling with pride and satisfaction. Each congratulatory pat on the back and each whispered word of admiration felt like a dagger twisting deeper into my heart. When Mr. Thompson finally moved away, I approached Elizabeth with a congratulatory smile that faltered on my lips. "Congratulations, Liz," I managed to say, my voice tinged with a mix of confusion and disbelief. "Thanks, honey," she replied, her smile bright and genuine, or so it seemed to everyone else in the room. To me, it now appeared as though painted on, hiding secrets and truths I was not supposed to uncover. I struggled to maintain a semblance of composure as we exchanged pleasantries. My mind raced, searching for explanations and rationalizations. Maybe she had been too busy to tell me about her promotion. Maybe it was a surprise she had planned to share later, but as the evening wore on, my initial shock gave way to a gnawing sense of betrayal. The pieces of the puzzle were scattered, yet they formed a disconcerting picture, one where trust was shattered, and the person I thought I knew best had kept significant parts of her life hidden from me. As guests mingled and laughter filled the room, I excused myself under the pretense of needing some fresh air. I found solace in a quiet corner, away from the revelry, where I could grapple with the truth that now loomed over me like a storm cloud. Betrayal, I realized, cuts deeper than mere infidelity. It severs the threads of trust that bind two people together, leaving behind a wreckage of doubts and shattered expectations. The vows we had exchanged, the promises of honesty and openness, now felt hollow and meaningless. I clenched my fists, fighting back a surge of emotions, anger, hurt, and a profound sense of loss. How could she have hidden such a monumental career leap from me? And more importantly, what else had she kept from me? The questions swirled in my mind, unanswered and unsettling. In that solitary moment, amidst the fading echoes of celebration, I confronted the stark reality that my marriage was no longer the sanctuary of trust and love I had believed it to be. As I stood alone in the dimly lit corner, the realization dawned on me with chilling clarity. My wife, Elizabeth, had betrayed me, and I was left to grapple with the aftermath of that betrayal alone. As I sat alone in the dimly lit living room, the events of the evening replayed in my mind like a broken record. The sounds of Elizabeth's laughter from the party still echoed faintly, but they were drowned out by the unsettling memories that now surfaced unbidden. I leaned back against the couch, staring blankly at the flickering TV screen. The images meant nothing to me. My thoughts were consumed by the nagging doubts that had begun to gnaw at me for months. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing details I had overlooked or dismissed in the past. I recalled the first signs of discord, subtle shifts in Elizabeth's routine that had initially seemed harmless. The late nights at the office are justified by urgent deadlines and important meetings. At first, I had been supportive, understanding the demands of her job. But as the weeks turned into months, the late nights became more frequent, and her explanations grew increasingly vague. Then there were the odd phone calls, hurried conversations in hushed tones that quickly ended when I entered the room. Innocuous at first glance, yet they now took on a sinister hue in light of recent revelations. Who was she talking to during those private moments? Why the secrecy? I remembered the sinking feeling in my gut each time she hurriedly silenced her phone or changed the subject when I asked about her day. Small details, insignificant on their own, but now they coalesced into a troubling pattern, a pattern that pointed to deception. I rubbed my temples, trying to dispel the growing unease that threatened to overwhelm me. How could I have been so blind? Was I simply too trusting, too willing to believe her excuses? Or had I ignored the warning signs because confronting the truth was too painful? The flickering of the TV screen cast shadows across the room, mirroring the uncertainty that clouded my mind. I felt a mix of anger and betrayal simmering beneath the surface, a potent cocktail of emotions fueled by the realization that my marriage may have been built on lies. As the night wore on, I wrestled with my thoughts, grappling with the implications of my newfound suspicions. The trust that had once been the cornerstone of our relationship now lay shattered, replaced by a sense of betrayal that cut deeper than I could have imagined. In that solitary moment, as the world outside slept peacefully, I confronted the harsh reality that my doubts were no longer mere whispers in the back of my mind. They were stark truths, staring me in the face and demanding acknowledgement. Elizabeth's laughter echoed in my memory once more, but this time it sounded hollow, a haunting reminder of the facade she had maintained and the doubts she had sown. And as I sat in the silence of our home, I knew that confronting her would be inevitable. The questions would need answers, and the truth, however painful, would have to be faced. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, each one a stark revelation of the betrayal that had unfolded right under my nose. As I sat at the kitchen table, bathed in the cold light of the morning sun, I couldn't escape the damning evidence that stared back at me. It started with the subtle shifts in Elizabeth's behavior, a gradual withdrawal from our shared moments, replaced by preoccupied silences and distant stares. At first, I had attributed it to work stress, her newfound responsibilities weighing heavily on her mind. But now I saw it for what it truly was, a calculated distancing, a barrier erected between us. Then there were the sudden influxes of money into our joint account, large sums that appeared without explanation, deposited under vague pretenses of bonuses and incentives. I had accepted her explanations at face value, trusting her implicitly. Now, I wondered how much of it was true, and how much was fabricated to conceal the truth. Her frequent business trips had once seemed necessary, part and parcel of her demanding career. But now, they took on a different significance, an excuse perhaps to cover her tracks and indulge in the deception that had taken root in our lives. I spread out bank statements and calendar entries on the table, tracing timelines and connections with meticulous care. The evidence was circumstantial yet damning, a pattern of behavior that pointed unmistakably to infidelity and deceit. Each detail once dismissed as insignificant now formed a web of lies too intricate to ignore. A bitter taste settled in my mouth as I contemplated the implications of my discoveries. How long had this betrayal been going on? How many lies had I swallowed, unwittingly complicit in the charade she had orchestrated? The weight of suspicion bore down on me, suffocating in its intensity. Anger simmered beneath the surface, mingling with a profound sense of hurt and betrayal. The vows we had exchanged, the promises of fidelity and honesty, they now lay shattered at my feet, trampled by the reality of Elizabeth's duplicity. I clenched my fists, fighting back a surge of emotions, frustration at being deceived, sorrow for the marriage that had unraveled before my eyes. The kitchen, once a place of shared meals and laughter, now felt like a battleground where trust had been slain and replaced by doubt. In that solitary moment, amidst the chaos of my thoughts, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever came next, whatever truths awaited me, I could no longer turn a blind eye to the betrayal that had tainted our marriage. The time for confrontation had come, and I would face it head-on, armed with the painful truths that had shattered my world. Armed with a growing sense of dread and determination, I set out to uncover the truth that lurked beneath Elizabeth's carefully constructed facade. It was a daunting task, one that required patience, cunning, and a steely resolve to confront the betrayal that threatened to unravel our marriage. I began by installing a discreet monitoring program on Elizabeth's phone, a necessary invasion of privacy born out of necessity rather than choice. Each beep, each notification that lit up the screen of my laptop was a grim reminder of the rift widening between us. The messages I intercepted told a story of their own, a clandestine affair blossoming under the guise of late-night work sessions and business trips. The casual intimacy in their exchanges cut through me like a knife, each word a testament to the trust she had broken and the vows she had forsaken. But it wasn't just digital breadcrumbs that I unearthed. Hidden away in a forgotten drawer, amidst bills and receipts, I stumbled upon letters and notes, tokens of affection exchanged between Elizabeth and her boss, Mr. Thompson. Their words, once sweet nothings whispered in secrecy, now seared through me with the force of betrayal. Financial transactions, meticulously documented, revealed a web of deceit woven into our shared finances. Large sums of money were transferred under pretenses, a financial trail that led straight to the heart of their illicit relationship. My hands trembled as I traced the paths of those transactions, each click of the mouse bringing me closer to the undeniable truth. The evidence mounted, piece by damning piece, until there was no room left for doubt. The photographs, the messages, the financial records, they painted a portrait of infidelity so vivid and undeniable that it left me reeling. I sat alone in our study, surrounded by the remnants of a life shattered by deceit. The weight of betrayal hung heavy in the air, suffocating in its intensity. Anger burned hot within me, fueled by the injustice of her actions and the shattered trust that lay in ruins. Yet amid the storm of emotions, a sense of clarity emerged, a grim resolve to confront Elizabeth with the evidence I had uncovered. The time for secrets and lies had passed. Now, there was only the harsh truth that demanded acknowledgement and reckoning. In that solitary moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the room, I knew that my path was clear. The confrontation awaited, and I would meet it head-on, armed with the undeniable proof that would lay bare the extent of her betrayal. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the painful confrontation that loomed on the horizon. Whatever the outcome, whatever lies ahead, I would face it with the courage of someone who had glimpsed the depths of betrayal and emerged stronger for it. Chapter title: Confrontation. The air in the room felt heavy with tension as I gathered my thoughts, steeling myself for the confrontation that had been building up inside me for weeks. Elizabeth sat across from me, her expression a mask of confusion and apprehension, unaware of the storm that was about to break. I took a deep breath, the weight of the evidence burning a hole in my conscience. With trembling hands, I laid out the photographs, messages, and financial records, each piece of proof meticulously collected, each revelation a dagger aimed at the heart of our marriage. Her eyes widened in disbelief as the truth unfolded before her, stark and undeniable. The color drained from her face, her lips parting in a silent plea for understanding that fell on deaf ears. "Why, Elizabeth?" My voice, tinged with anger and hurt, cut through the silence like a blade. "How could you do this to us?" she stammered, searching for words that could never justify the betrayal that had shattered our trust. "Michael, I didn't mean for this to happen. It just did." Her excuses rang hollow, drowned out by the weight of the evidence that lay between us. The excuses she had rehearsed fell apart under the weight of truth, leaving only the raw pain of betrayal in their wake. I watched as realization dawned in her eyes, a painful acknowledgement of the damage wrought by her actions. There were no more lies to hide behind, no more excuses to shield her from the consequences of her betrayal. "I trusted you, Elizabeth," I continued, my voice steadier now, laced with a resolve born of pain. "We made vows, promises to each other. How could you throw it all away?" Tears welled in her eyes, a mix of remorse and regret. "Michael, I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Please." But her pleas fell on deaf ears, drowned out by the echoes of shattered trust and broken promises. The foundations of our marriage, once strong and resilient, now lay in ruins at our feet. I stood up, the weight of the truth heavy on my shoulders. "I want you to leave," I said quietly, my voice betraying the storm of emotions raging within me. "I need time to process all of this." She nodded silently, her gaze fixed on the floor as she gathered her belongings. The room felt smaller now, suffocating in its silence. A silence broken only by the sound of her footsteps retreating down the hallway. Alone once more, I sank back into the chair, the remnants of our life together scattered around me like shards of glass. The confrontation had come and gone, leaving behind a void where trust and love had once thrived, a void that would take time to heal, if it ever could. In that moment of solitude, amidst the wreckage of our marriage, I knew that the road ahead would be long and uncertain. But one thing remained clear. I had confronted the truth and faced the betrayal head-on. And now, I would begin the painful journey toward healing. The moment hung heavy between us, charged with the weight of unspoken truths and shattered trust. Elizabeth's eyes darted nervously, avoiding my gaze as I waited for her response to the damning evidence laid out before us. "Michael, please try to understand," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I never meant to hurt you." Her words, once sweet whispers of affection, now rang hollow in the face of the truth. I watched as she struggled to find the right words, grappling with the guilt that threatened to consume her. I needed this job, Michael," she continued, her voice wavering. "The promotion, the bonuses, they were all I could think about. I thought it would be good for us, for our future." Anger flared anew within me, mingling with a deep sense of betrayal. "You chose career advancement over our marriage," I accused, my voice thick with hurt. "You put money and status above our vows." Tears streamed down her cheeks now, a silent testament to the remorse that gnawed at her conscience. "I'm sorry, Michael," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I didn't know how to tell you. I was afraid of losing everything." Her admission hung in the air, heavy with the weight of regret and shattered dreams. In that moment, I saw the depth of her desperation, the misguided belief that success at any cost could fill the void left by broken promises. But there were no more excuses left to offer, no more lies to shield her from the consequences of her actions. The truth had been laid bare, leaving us both to grapple with the aftermath of betrayal. I closed my eyes briefly, the pain of her confession cutting deep. "I need time," I finally managed to say, my voice rough with emotion. "I need to figure out what comes next." Elizabeth nodded silently, her shoulders slumped in defeat. The silence stretched between us, punctuated only by the soft sound of her footsteps as she turned and walked away. Alone once more, I leaned heavily against the kitchen counter, grappling with the wreckage of our marriage. The admission had been made, the truth acknowledged, but the wounds of betrayal would take far longer to heal if they ever could. Anger and disappointment surged through me like a tidal wave, crashing against the shores of my shattered trust. Elizabeth's confession echoed in my mind, each word a painful reminder of the betrayal that had torn through the fabric of our marriage. I paced the living room, unable to contain the storm of emotions raging within me. How could she have done this? How could she prioritize career ambition and financial gain over our vows, over the life we had built together? The images of her with Mr. Thompson, the whispered conversations and exchanged glances, they haunted me now, etched into my memory with painful clarity. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had loved and trusted, had become a stranger caught in a web of deceit. My fists clenched at my sides, nails digging into my palms as I fought to contain the torrent of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Anger burned hot within me, fueled by the sense of injustice and betrayal that pulsed through my veins. Disappointment, too, gnawed at my heart, a deep ache born from the shattered dreams and broken promises that now lay scattered at my feet. The future we had planned together, the hopes and aspirations we had shared, they seemed like distant echoes now, drowned out by the harsh reality of her infidelity. I sank heavily onto the couch, exhaustion washing over me as I grappled with the harsh truth of our reality. How could I have been so blind? How could I have missed the signs and ignored the subtle shifts in her behavior that now seemed glaringly obvious? Memories flashed before my eyes, moments of happiness and intimacy, now tainted by the knowledge of her betrayal. Each memory, once a source of joy, now twisted into a painful reminder of what I had lost. The weight of her actions pressed down on me, suffocating in its intensity. How could I trust again? How could I ever believe in love and fidelity when the person I trusted most had shattered that belief? Hours passed in a blur, the darkness of night settling around me like a shroud. Alone with my thoughts, I wrestled with the turmoil of emotions, anger, disappointment, and a profound sense of loss. Eventually, exhaustion claimed me, and I drifted into a fitful sleep, haunted by dreams of a life that once held promise, now irreversibly altered by her betrayal. As dawn broke on a new day, I awoke to the harsh reality of my new truth. Elizabeth's confession had opened a wound that would take time to heal, leaving me to navigate a path forward through the wreckage of our shattered marriage. The decision weighed heavily on my shoulders, a culmination of pain, betrayal, and shattered trust. Sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by the remnants of what had once been our shared life. I knew there was no turning back. I stared at the divorce papers spread out before me, each line a stark reminder of the irreversible path I was about to take. The ink on the pages seemed to mock the vows we had exchanged, now rendered meaningless by Elizabeth's betrayal. It wasn't just about her affair with Mr. Thompson. It was about the breach of trust, the lies that had woven a tangled web around our marriage. How could I continue to live with someone whose actions had torn apart the very foundation of our relationship? Memories of happier times flickered in my mind, fleeting glimpses of a love that had once been pure and unwavering. But those memories now felt distant, obscured by the pain of her infidelity and the harsh reality of our broken bond. I had tried to salvage what was left of our marriage, confronted her with the evidence, and listened to her feeble justifications. But in the end, none of it mattered. The trust that had once bound us together had been irreparably shattered. A deep sigh escaped my lips, carrying with it the weight of resignation and acceptance. I knew what I had to do for my sanity, for the chance to rebuild a life free from deceit and betrayal. With a steady hand, I picked up the pen and began to sign my name on the dotted line. Each stroke felt like a finality, a closure to a chapter of my life that I had never imagined would end this way. As I finished signing, a sense of relief washed over me, a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness of heartbreak. I had made my decision, guided by the certainty that our marriage had died the moment Elizabeth chose ambition and deceit over love and fidelity. Tears blurred my vision as I folded the papers, the weight of their significance settling into the depths of my soul. The road ahead would be difficult, marked by loneliness and uncertainty, but it was a path I had to take to reclaim my dignity and self-respect. Pushing the papers aside, I stood up from the table, feeling a mix of emotions, sadness, anger, and a flicker of newfound resolve. Elizabeth's betrayal had changed me, but it would not define me. The decision to exact revenge simmered within me, fueled by the searing pain of betrayal and the burning desire for justice. Elizabeth's betrayal had left me stripped of trust and dignity, and now it was time for her to face the consequences. Sitting in my study, surrounded by the cold silence of night, I began to meticulously plan my revenge. Every detail mattered, from the methodical gathering of evidence to the strategic execution of my plan. She had to lose everything, just as I had. I pulled out a notebook and started jotting down ideas, thoughts swirling in my mind like a storm gathering momentum. How could I ensure she felt the full weight of her actions? How could I make her understand the depth of my pain? I researched her financial dealings, traced her connections, and mapped out a strategy that would unravel her carefully constructed facade. She had climbed the corporate ladder on deceit and betrayal, and now it was time for her to fall. The glow of the computer screen illuminated my determined expression as I delved deeper into my research. Each piece of information uncovered added fuel to the fire burning within me, a fire fueled by hurt, anger, and the relentless pursuit of justice. I knew this path would be fraught with risks, but I was willing to take them. Elizabeth had gambled with our marriage, and now it was my turn to play the game on my terms. Closing the notebook with a resolute snap, I felt a surge of grim satisfaction. Revenge wasn't just about inflicting pain. It was about restoring balance, about reclaiming my sense of worth and power. Tomorrow, I would begin to set my plan in motion, step by calculated step. Elizabeth would soon learn that the consequences of betrayal were not just emotional, they were devastatingly real. With meticulous precision, I crafted my strategy to strip Elizabeth of everything she had gained through deceit and betrayal. The glow of my computer screen illuminated the darkness of the room as I delved into the details of her recent career advancements and financial windfalls. Her promotion, facilitated by her affair with Mr. Thompson, had catapulted her into a position of power and privilege. But now, those very achievements would become her downfall. I mapped out a series of calculated moves, exposing her unethical practices to the company's board and leveraging the evidence of her falsified reports and manipulated data. I would ensure that her professional reputation, meticulously built on lies, would crumble under the weight of truth. Financially, I traced the trails of money that had mysteriously appeared in her accounts, linking them to dubious transactions and unethical dealings. With each piece of evidence meticulously gathered, I strengthened my case to strip her of the financial privileges she had ill-gotten. The hours blurred into days as I worked tirelessly, driven by a singular purpose, to ensure that Elizabeth faced the full consequences of her actions. My resolve hardened with each keystroke, each decision made to dismantle the facade she had so carefully constructed. Tomorrow, I would begin to set my plan in motion, executing each step with unwavering determination. Elizabeth would soon realize that her betrayal had not only cost her marriage, but also her career, her financial stability, and the respect of those around her. As I closed the lid of my laptop, the weight of my plan settled upon me, a mix of satisfaction and grim resolve. Revenge wasn't merely about vengeance. It was about restoring justice and reclaiming my sense of honor and integrity. With a steady hand, I sent the anonymous message containing damning evidence of data falsification in Elizabeth's latest project to her boss. The cursor blinked on my screen, a silent witness to the justice I sought to restore. The email was carefully crafted, detailing the discrepancies in the project reports, citing manipulated figures and fabricated results. I included attachments, screenshots, and data analyses that exposed Elizabeth's unethical practices beyond doubt. As I hit the send button, a rush of adrenaline surged through me. This was the moment of truth, the culmination of weeks of planning and preparation. Elizabeth's carefully constructed facade was about to crumble, and there was no turning back. I imagined her boss receiving the email, his initial disbelief giving way to realization as he scrutinized the evidence. Questions would be asked and investigations launched. The fallout would be swift and severe, just as I intended. Sitting back in my chair, I felt a mix of satisfaction and apprehension. Revenge wasn't a simple act of retribution. It was a calculated strike to ensure that Elizabeth faced the consequences of her betrayal, both personally and professionally. In the days that followed, whispers of scandal began to circulate through the office. Elizabeth's once glistening career trajectory is now tarnished by the shadows of deceit. It was a bittersweet victory, one that brought closure to my shattered trust and wounded pride. As I watched events unfold from a distance, I knew that justice had been served. Elizabeth's downfall wasn't just about losing a job or a reputation. It was about facing the repercussions of her choices and understanding the gravity of her actions. Closing the chapter on my vengeance, I allowed myself a moment of reflection. The path to revenge had been dark and treacherous, but through it, I had reclaimed a semblance of peace and closure. Elizabeth's remorse, if it ever came, would be a bitter reminder of the price of betrayal. The results of my vengeance were swift and unforgiving. Elizabeth's once promising career crumbled under the weight of her deceit. It all came crashing down when her boss, confronted with irrefutable evidence of data falsification and ethical breaches, made the decisive move to terminate her. I watched from afar as the news spread like wildfire through the office. Whispers of her dismissal echoed in the hallways, mingling with the palpable sense of disbelief and betrayal. The prestige she had gained through her illicit affair and manipulative tactics evaporated in an instant. Her termination wasn't just a loss of employment, it was a public denouncement of her integrity and professional ethics. The fallout was severe, tarnishing not only her reputation, but also severing ties with colleagues who once trusted and respected her. As I observed the aftermath, a complex mix of emotions washed over me. There was a sense of vindication, knowing that justice had been served. Yet beneath the surface satisfaction, there lingered a hollow ache, a reminder of the love and trust that had been shattered irreparably. Elizabeth's downfall was a testament to the consequences of betrayal and deceit. She had gambled everything for personal gain, oblivious to the toll it would take on her career and personal life. Now, she faced the harsh reality of starting anew, stripped of the accolades and privileges she had deceitfully acquired. Walking away from the wreckage of our marriage and her career, I found solace in the knowledge that I had reclaimed a measure of dignity and closure. Elizabeth's regrets, if they ever surfaced, would be a burden she carried alone, a reminder of the price paid for betrayal. As Elizabeth's world crumbled around her, I witnessed a transformation in her demeanor. The once proud and ambitious woman now stood before me, humbled and broken. Her eyes, once filled with determination, now reflected a profound sorrow and regret. "I'm sorry, Michael," she whispered, her voice barely audible against the backdrop of our shattered life. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I was consumed by ambition, by the desire for success and recognition." Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of her guilt. She spoke of the choices she had made, the compromises she had justified in the name of career advancement and financial security. Yet beneath her plea for forgiveness, I sensed a genuine remorse, a realization of the irreparable damage caused by her betrayal. "I'll change, Michael," she pleaded, her voice trembling with emotion. "I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. Please give me another chance." Her words tugged at my heartstrings, stirring a tumultuous mix of anger and compassion within me. How could I forgive the woman who had shattered my trust, who had jeopardized everything we had built together? And yet, seeing her vulnerable and repentant, I couldn't deny the flicker of empathy that stirred within me. As I looked into her eyes, searching for sincerity amidst the wreckage of our marriage, I knew that forgiveness wouldn't come easily. The wounds she had inflicted ran deep, leaving scars that time alone could never fully heal. For now, Elizabeth's plea for redemption echoed in the silence between us, a fragile hope amidst the ruins of our shattered trust. After Elizabeth's heartfelt plea for forgiveness, I stood at a crossroads, wrestling with a tempest of emotions. Her words, laden with regret and promises of change, echoed in my mind. I wanted to believe her, to reach out and grasp the remnants of our once happy life. But the pain of her betrayal was too raw, too deep. Her tear-streaked face and trembling voice pleaded for a second chance. She spoke of ambition and misguided decisions, of doing it all for the sake of our future. But her justifications felt hollow against the backdrop of our fractured trust. "I can't," I finally said, my voice heavy with sorrow and conviction. "I can't go back, Elizabeth, not after everything." She looked at me, her eyes wide with disbelief and sorrow. Tears welled up, spilling down her cheeks as she reached out, her hand trembling. I stepped back, the physical distance a reflection of the emotional chasm between us. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I never meant for any of this to happen." Her words hung in the air, a desperate attempt to bridge the gap that her actions had created. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to understand why she had risked everything we had built together. But deep down, I already knew. Ambition and greed had driven her to this point, a relentless pursuit of career advancement at the cost of our marriage. "I can't trust you again," I said, my throat tight with unshed tears. "Not now." Her shoulders slumped, and a sob escaped her lips. The sight of her vulnerability tugged at my heart, but the wounds she had inflicted were too deep to heal with mere words. With a heavy heart, I turned away, leaving Elizabeth standing alone in the ruins of our relationship. Each step I took felt like a part of me was breaking, but I knew it was the right choice. Staying would only prolong the agony, feeding the cycle of doubt and hurt. As I walked away, a storm of emotions churned within me: anger, sorrow, and a profound sense of loss. The ache in my chest was a constant reminder of what we had shared and what we had lost. Yet amidst the pain, there was a glimmer of resolve. I had made my decision, choosing to leave her behind and reclaim a semblance of my dignity and self-worth. In that moment, I resolved to let go of the past, to leave Elizabeth behind as a chapter of my life marred by betrayal. It was a decision born of self-preservation, a step towards healing and renewal. The road ahead was uncertain and lonely, but it was my path to walk. Leaving Elizabeth behind was not easy, but it was necessary. As I moved forward, the memories of our life together haunted me, a reminder of the love we had lost and the consequences of our actions. But I knew that this was the only way to find peace and rebuild my shattered trust, to forge a new future free from the shadows of betrayal. Months passed since I walked away from Elizabeth and the tangled mess of our broken marriage. The initial pain of her betrayal had subsided, replaced by a newfound sense of clarity and freedom. As I stood on the threshold of a new life, I felt lighter, unburdened by the lies and deceit that had weighed me down for so long. Each day, I embraced my independence, rediscovering the man I had been before our relationship became tainted by mistrust. I immersed myself in work, hobbies, and friendships that I had neglected. The world seemed brighter, full of opportunities I hadn't noticed while trapped in the shadow of her betrayal. I rented a small apartment in the heart of the city, a place that felt like a fresh start. The walls, once bare, quickly became adorned with mementos of my new journey, photographs of travels, art pieces I had collected, and books I finally had the time to read. Each item was a testament to my resilience and the life I was rebuilding from the ground up. In the mornings, I would walk to the nearby cafe, savoring the simplicity of a well-made cup of coffee and the hum of city life. I found solace in the routine, a stark contrast to the chaos that had once consumed my days. My interactions with others felt genuine, unclouded by the suspicion that had become second nature during the final months of my marriage. Elizabeth, on the other hand, remained a distant memory, a ghost from a past life. Through mutual friends, I heard snippets of her regret and her attempts to piece together the fragments of her shattered existence. She had lost her job, her reputation in tatters after the scandal I had exposed. Her new life was a far cry from the ambition-fueled dreams she had chased at the expense of our marriage. She reached out a few times, messages filled with remorse and pleas for forgiveness. But I had made my decision. Responding would only reopen wounds that were finally beginning to heal. Instead, I chose silence, allowing both of us to find our paths separately. Her regret was her burden to bear, just as my healing was mine. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city, I stood on the balcony of my apartment, reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The pain of Elizabeth's betrayal had transformed into a powerful lesson, a reminder of my strength and the importance of self-respect. As I watched the city lights flicker to life, I felt a profound sense of peace. The future stretched out before me, filled with possibilities I hadn't dared to dream of before. I was free from the chains of deceit, ready to embrace whatever came next. In the end, I had found something far more valuable than revenge or retribution. I had found myself, and that above all else was worth everything I had endured.